good people. How are you all going? I thought I'd just do a quick video about the final assignment for HSP404. Yay! The research paper. This one feels pretty overwhelming and massive, but once you're into the swing of the other two assignments, I think this one is a lot easier to get through because you understand why you're doing it and you understand what needs to go in it, which is really, really important. So yeah, a lot of people do approach this as though they need to go through this mountain of knowledge, which is not the case. It really depends on what you choose. And a lot of people panic because it's bigger than normal assignments. It's 5,000 to 6,000 words, which can be a little bit daunting. But once you've got a fairly good hold of what you're doing and you know how to structure it, the ideas will flow. And I can almost guarantee that by the end, you'll need to be actually reducing the numbers of words rather than desperately trying to get more in your document. The due date is on the Milo site for you, but it is basically the end of semester, so it's pretty easy. It's 5,000 to 6,000 words for this particular assignment, and that excludes your reference list, and this is weighted at 50% overall. The research paper focuses on your grasp of underpinning concepts in your chosen topic area, or issues relating to institutional policy that are relevant to your organisational workplace setting. Following on from assignment tasks 1 and 2, the research paper is very much the culmination of the work you've done. Your research paper should clearly state your question and conclude with the findings from your research. The dot point outline that you put together for your original discussion board post, a good place to start with this, but as usual, it will move a lot and there'll be quite a lot of uncertainty about what's actually going to go into the document until you get there. So don't stress too much about that. Your workplace subject matter expert will help a lot with this paper because ultimately, if it's a workplace issue that you're focused on, they will be the ones that will be guiding your process here. So you can clarify the parameters of the final project and the different parts that you need into it by talking about that with them in the first instance. The academic advisor, of course, is another really important person to talk about this with because they help to finalise what should be in it, how you can structure that as well, including questions about formatting and presentation. Any literature that you have, you need to be able to incorporate that too and reference it appropriately. So if you're doing a workplace-based project, you will need to discuss the shape of the task basically with your subject matter expert. If you're doing a research-based project, then you're more likely going to be weighing on the advice of an academic advisor because they'll be able to help you shore up the shape of that knowledge base and what you need to put in that final piece. Either way, you will need to discuss the structure of this task and the different parts that you need in there. And once you've done that, I think it will be fairly straightforward in terms of what you actually need to do and how you need to present it. General tips for this task: using third-person language is preferred, but if you are actually in charge of this project, then first person can sometimes be okay too. Make sure you base it around answering a research question. This can be really helpful for actually making it clear what you're targeting at the end point. Think carefully about how you structure it so that you're making an argument. Start with the broad and end with the specific. When you're trying to make an argument in a paper of this size, it's really, really crucial that you do that. Make sure you also include at least a couple of references per paragraph as usual. Because if you have information in there that doesn't have references, then we start to question whether or not it's your ideas or where you've got those ideas and all of that sort of stuff. If you're reporting on the results of interviews though, which is really unlikely, but nonetheless I need to mention it, and you're including quotes from your interviewees, then you're probably less likely to have references in those paragraphs. And your interview quotes then become your evidence in that part of your paragraph. Remember that you've already determined what has been written on the topic in your lit review, so what you're doing is different to your lit review. However, you may still need a small amount of literature to bridge what you're talking about. So you might start with a bit of a background, then have a very short lit review that you've condensed out of your longer one. So that bit is actually quite easy. But think about condensing it just to a couple of paragraphs before you then move into your main research paper, which is the focus. Your structure is likely to be determined by this focus. If you're making an academic argument about the need to do research, then you will obviously be focused on bodies of literature that you've come across in the process. If you're making a business case and making an argument for resources or training, then you're going to be looking at a bit of the literature review very briefly, and then other relevant workplace documents, government documents, things like that. But then your business case will be most of your word count. So you might have a 1,500 word bridging paper, and then the rest of your word count is actually your business case. If you're analysing a core policy, then you'll obviously be thinking very clearly about what sections you're going to be focused on and how you're going to structure that analysis. So you might look at assumptions underpinning the policy, and then you'd be having a look at the main strength, the main weakness. You might do a SWOT analysis of the policy. Whatever it is, that's what will structure it, and you'll need to weave literature all the way through it. If you're doing an evaluation or an empirical research project, you'll need to ensure that you're engaging again briefly with the existing literature, condense that 2,000 words to a couple of paragraphs before going into discussing and analysing the results of what you found. So the results of your survey or the results of your interviews, whatever it is that you're actually focusing on. But you're bringing that together in themes. So we've got a general suggested structure, 400 words for the intro. Your background context is going to be about 200 words. It could actually be 400 words too, but that's up to you. The body of your research paper will be about 5,400 words. And then you've got a 400 word conclusion as well. And of course, as usual, a list of references. Feedback to past students. Make sure that you include more research literature in your final response. You need to demonstrate that your level of understanding has deepened since you've done your critical lit review. And this is easy. It's not about going into huge reams of information about that new literature. It's about condensing it, adding it in, and then moving on to the next bits. Big but here. The lit review can't take up half the paper. It must be in a truncated form. You can't just paste your whole other lit review in there. And of course, everything else you do depends on the approach that you take. What does the marking rubric say? We need to be using current and relevant research literature to support all your key points. Make sure you've got a high level of integration into the text, and using synthesis across your sources. And have a clear and detailed analysis of the key themes in the literature. Critically reflect the theory related to the organisational setting. So there might be a knowledge base that you need to quote and bring into your research paper that's relevant to that organisational setting. So if people are looking at the different types of factors which get in the way of promotion of women in police organisations, then of course you're going to be looking at whether or not there's any other research that's been done on that in other police organisations around Australia. We've got a lot here that focuses on adherence to academic writing conventions, introduction and conclusion, expression clear and concise, fluent writing style, assignment is formatted appropriately, and making sure you've got clear, evident paragraphs, and referencing is consistently accurate. And we've got a bit more here about the critical analysis. Analysis of the implications and practical application of the issues that you're talking about, and the future implications in particular. And then looking at the strength of the conclusions that you draw. Specific and focused conclusions related to the project that you're focused on. And of course, this could include recommendations. Thinking about how you're going back to that research question as well. And look, folks, that's pretty much it. If you've got any questions, as per usual, just email us and we're happy to help. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that was helpful, and I'll chat to you all soon. See you later.